Welcome, everyone, to this, well, I was about to say post-election, but we're in the midst of one, this mid-election Alex Thomas show. But I'm welcome to and glad that you're here because we have a really important issue that I want to talk about. It is the displaced residents from our homeless population that were previously housed at the Delano Center. And to join me for this discussion, I have three guests with unique perspectives, a very informed opinion on the issue. I'll let them introduce themselves, and we'll do a little reverse. Since you're usually it's the ladies first, but since we're so connected to it, I want to have Deon go and just introduce yourself, and then we'll go Carole and Dr. or Susan go. Deon.
Hello, my name is Deon Baldwin. I am a member of Camp Outreach. So I'm a community activist who's just starting out with looks promising, wanting to help the community and the homelessness situation in our community, and got some great people with us today.
Cool. Thank you, Deon, and thanks for coming. Carole?
Thanks for having me, Alex. I'm Carole McCabe. I was the founding director of Avalon Housing and then worked there for 20 years, which is a supportive housing organization here in Ann Arbor. So I've been working on homelessness and trying to end homelessness in Washtenaw County for quite a while. I've left that job of several years, 3 years ago now, I guess, and also had some involvement working with Washtenaw County in their response to the COVID epidemic and its impact on people experiencing homelessness. So very excited to have our conversation today. Feeling very urgent about the issues ahead.
Thank you, Carole, for your work and for coming here today. Susan?
Well, thank you for having us here today, Alex. My name is Susan Dorr Gould. I'm a professor at the University of Michigan in internal medicine. So I'm a doctor and in health management and policy. And I focused most of my work on issues having to do with justice in health and healthcare, and but international, national, state, local. I've worked with our county health department on some things and with our state health department. So I'm excited to talk about this topic. I think it's very, very important.
Well, thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone. Let's talk about it. I'm going to give a breakdown of the facts as I know it, or the story as I know it. And it's out of what we've seen in M Live, and also, and it's so unfortunate, that's the paper of record, the media source of record, but they do the best they can. But from the M Live article that I'll link in this discussion, and from talking to other people, the Delano's homeless shelter had a capacity pre-COVID of about 140. Post-COVID, it was 70 would be capacity. Plus, they lost some immediate staff right at when COVID began in early April. At that time, with the population that could not be placed at the Delano Center, the health department or the county placed those residents in single occupancy rooms at the Red Roof Inn, at a Red Roof Inn. And since April, they had stable living. I know that came to an end Halloween, October 31st, and starting November 1st, that population was placed on a shelter network of churches and other spots around the county. Also, the Mary Lou Rec Centers open in the evenings from 9 p.m. to in the M Live story, it was 6 in the morning. I spoke to someone from Camp Outreach, Casey, Deon, and she said that she's heard it's about 5 in the morning they're kicking people out. And so from 9 p.m. to 5 in the morning, there's a place for those people. At 5, from what I've heard, they're putting them out. There's a warming center at Westgate available during the day. There's some the kinks are being worked out in transportation in between that. I haven't been able to get an exact number or a number on any idea who's actually staying in that Mary Lou Rec Center overnight. Capacity is about 60, from what I understand. But the tragedy in this, besides, in my humble opinion, is in that just that we're taking the most vulnerable population that's exposed to COVID, placing them from single occupancy, the safest possible way right now, and then exposing them to more risk in congregate situations, and then also putting them out in the public without care, and also, and again, in my layperson's perspective, exposing the general public to higher risk. So that's what I know so far. Deon, does that match with what you know and the story, or give me your
Yeah,
perspective?
so as it stands right now, we don't we don't know anyone who's staying at the Mary Lou Recreational Center. We haven't met anyone. The ones came forward and said. So we're still working on it to see how
We can we Camp Outreach.
there's some people to the Delano Center as well, the Wyndham Garden Hotel on Jackson Road. So I know that the Westgate branch will probably have some of those people from Wyndham Garden for food or just to check in or stuff
Okay.
like that. As well as the rotating church that was started on the 2nd as well. So there's going to be 5 locations. They've already started their first month in November. That's what we have right now. So we're still working out transportation situations for Mary Lou. That's something that we're going to discuss on our meeting at Journey of Faith this weekend. So yeah, we're still tackling that issue.
So when you say it's Camp Outreach, and when you say we're working on transportation issues, is that with the county and AATA, or like a network within Camp Outreach, or what?
It's our network within the community, which is Camp Outreach. It's just community members that are just looking out for the homeless and people needing shelter. We are in need of fundraiser supplies. And then as I have a list here of things that was proposed that we could really use for just people that are homeless and sleeping in tents still, things like that.
Deon, when I post this, I'll put that list and some contact info in this discussion here, and give you a chance to tell more about the history of Camp Outreach and what you guys are doing now. But I definitely want to share your info and give people an opportunity to support you guys. So don't worry about that. I'll get that in for sure. Susan or Carole, did you have any questions already for Deon, or any thoughts so far?
Well,
I have, oh, go ahead.
No, you first, Carole.
I'm sorry. One quick question is, are you guys in regular communication with the county at all, or?
Yeah, so we had a meeting with the county discuss like kind of like where things stand on like a schedule. November, going into December, but specifically like November. And we were told that for what they have in play is what we kind of discussed already. For December, we're still needing to solidify more of the grounds of how we can help. So that hasn't been planned as of yet, December and moving forward.
My other quick question, sorry, is about numbers. And do you have a sense of the demand yet? Or I don't know how many of the people from the Red Roof Inn did get safely rehoused, even though, of course, temporarily. But do you have any kind of count or any kind of total that you guys are, or do you?
Yeah, so I believe it was 35 residents got replaced. And so between the 3 locations, the warming center, the rotating church warming center, the Delano Center, and the Wyndham Garden Hotel.
Mhm.
That was once a number at the Red Roof of over 100. So people got homes. Some of them got homes. Some of them couch surfed. Some of them, got into situations where they could get into housing. So that was good.
Mhm. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
First, is the Delano shelter still limited to 70 people? And is that so they can house people or have people in a socially distant way?
Yeah, that's for definitely social distance. They did
Okay.
open up the second floor as well with
Mhm.
more night shelter, as well as working with the health department and the guidelines to
Mhm.
extend the 3 bedroom to or the 1 bedroom of 3 people to 1 bedroom 4 people. Uh, there is weekly testing for
Mhm.
on Fridays.
Mhm.
It's kind of mandatory to see if we get that number up to 4 per bedroom.
So how many people are at the Delano shelter now? Do you know?
It
Approximately?
it varies day to day.
Mhm.
At night, some people like to come, some people will stay out.
Oh yeah.
Recently, it's been warmer.
You're right.
Um,
They're not coming in as much. Yeah.
yeah, so but I'm sure like next week and the following
Uh-huh.
weeks there'll be more coming in. Uh, I think I did count 26 mats on the first floor and
Uh-huh.
about 15 on the second floor, and then the third and fourth levels for residents.
Okay.
That's on the floor. We'll get to that.
Right.
But go ahead. Go
That
ahead,
was
Susan.
another, well, that was part of my question is because, how far apart are they? And, just doesn't seem like a real safe living situation in the time of rising cases of the coronavirus.
Can I have
And
one clarification of those numbers?
yeah,
Back in April and May, when we were first starting this response, they reduced the number of people who could stay at Delano's to 38 safely, but that has to do with what Deon said about the number per room, not having,
right.
they really ratcheted it down. Now they have raised it. And again, as Deon said, because of testing and everything else, but I do know that public health department has signed off on the increase. And that is,
Yes.
they are working closely with it. I personally don't think it passes the human dignity test. We'll get to that. But in terms
Right.
of safety, which
Right.
one concern,
Right.
in addition to respect and basic, decency. So anyway, just to say that they are coordinating and the shelter is trying to work and is working closely with the public health.
With the health department. Okay.
Yes,
Well, yeah.
everybody is screened. Everybody is screened that comes in.
Screening too, yeah.
Temperature, they're asked questions, and also they're required to wear masks. And like the staff are on it, man. Like if someone doesn't have a mask on, they're like, "Hey, mask," or you gotta leave.
Yep.
I know there was one young woman that had to exit yesterday after being told 4 times to put on a mask. So they do.
It had a
they are
remarkably
strict.
low incidence of COVID cases. I don't know
Mhm.
currently, but I think we had 2 very, very early on, and I think none that I've heard of since then.
Yeah,
Well,
So,
that actually moves into my next question, which is, so what happens when a homeless person tests positive for COVID? Then where do they
right
go?
right now, if a homeless person tests positive for COVID, they will be quarantined at the Wyndham Hotel. So
Okay.
that's kind of like the steps they would take for anybody that tests positive.
Mm-hmm.
I know there were 15 rooms that were acquired and 30 people that are clients attending at the Wyndham. So I'm not for sure if they plan on getting more rooms if that happens or what. So I'll try to dig and find out. See if I can find out about that.
Are all the people staying at the Wyndham people who are either in isolation or quarantine? And
People that are more susceptible to the COVID.
oh, I
So
see. Okay.
I know,
At
medically
higher
yeah,
risk.
fragile.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
high risk.
Okay.
Susan, I wanted you to get a chance to have ask all your questions, but I definitely
Sorry.
I definitely wanted to get the public health perspective because, as I said, that as a layperson, it just seemed like as if those people, the people that are being displaced, are at more risk, and the general
Yeah.
public. And if that is correct, and maybe you can go into more detail, just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a patient just in the last couple weeks who um, she doesn't have COVID, but she was having some other problems. She uses a walker and she's sleeping in a tent. And when I was talking about her with some other people, I said, what she really needs is a bed to feel better, and a roof. And, there's not a lot medically you can do for somebody who's having trouble, doesn't have a good place to live. So, or a decent place to live. So,
The dignity part again, Carol.
the dignity, definitely the dignity part. And just, I remember talking at a community event many years ago about the Fuse program, where they were providing some housing for people with a lot of health problems. I said, if you have diabetes or a blood clot or something like that, your doctor tells you to, elevate your legs and take care of yourself and take your medicine and all this stuff. You can't do it if you don't have a place to live.
Exactly.
So that's, and I think with this, it's not just, Carol, definitely the dignity issue and the individual quality of life, but we're also talking about an infectious disease. So when people get kicked out of wherever they're sleeping and they're going around town, you know, that's not such a good thing if they're coming from a congregate living place, because they're at higher risk of getting infected because of their living conditions. And then we send them out on the street and they have contact with more people. So it's just not good for any of us.
If I had my studio in a different world, I'd pull up the current chart that would show the rise in cases in COVID in the county. And you'll see a marked increase when the students come back from U of M. And then other factors that you would know better than I, Susan, and the winter. But we're in a crisis. The numbers right now in terms of infection and I believe hospitalization also are at its highest, higher than back in April and when we were in a more heightened sense. Does that match with what you know, Susan, or anyone else also?
I think the case numbers are much higher, but the admissions are not. They've gone up, definitely. They've at Michigan Medicine, I think they've about quadrupled over the past couple of weeks in terms of people admitted with COVID infection, but they're not as high as they were in the spring. Not yet.
Okay. The admitted, but the cases, but not the admits to the hospital.
Right. But remember, back in the spring, we couldn't test so many people. So, the case numbers back then were artificially low.
And just aside, I was tested yesterday, waiting for the results because I'm going to be doing some traveling and wanted to get, and it was not bad at all. I did the drive up at St. Joe's. People are such whiners. I mean, I heard that I had the nose test.
They stuck that thing up your nose and you didn't even feel it.
Well, I was expecting much worse, but no, and it was great staff and fast. So good job, St. Joe's. But the testing, testing is huge and a big component and needed. Please don't hesitate. I would want to, because prior to the interview, when I spoke to Deon, on top of the threat to the increased risk to the community, and straight the dignity part, something that he told me. Deon, could you share you mentioned just some of the experiences of some of the people that were formerly at the Delano, but they were individualized housing and the effect on their lives.
Yeah, so I actually had the chance to speak to a couple people about their experience at the Red Roof, and I was told that uh, it's kind of helping. It helps them kind of stay clear-minded and focus. The separation and isolation, because it's on the north side of town, um, really helped them, and they didn't allow like alcohol or drugs on property, so a lot of them had to like give most of that up. So their thoughts kind of like were better. Their plan of action for housing was more in line, which was really surprising to me. Um, and they took a look at themselves from where they were and where they grew up to how they got in that situation to having the opportunity to be in the RRI program and
Rapid rehousing or R?
Rapid roof.
yeah,
Red Roof Inn.
Okay, good. I'm the host.
And
There is rapid rehousing. That's another program.
it gave them a sense of hope because I met them previously, and they were in the night shelter, and until they were moved to the Red Roof, and it just seemed to me like having time to breathe, having privacy, having a situation outside of the normal downtown area really provided an exhale. Working with their case managers, Avalon Housing, and the rest of the support organizations really helped them get kind of like a backbone, a spine of how they could go about ending their homeless situation, and they really felt great. It was a great idea, and I hope we can do something like that more in the future for uh, homelessness transitioning into housing. So it really helps.
Thank you so much. That's to the dignity part. That's what what I felt before hearing that, before talking to him, talking to Deon yesterday, or talking to you. That's what I heard from others. Just the chance to stabilize and not thinking about survival, but having a chance to reflect and yeah, think clearly, as you said, about what to do and how to improve their life. But Carole, I mean, with your history of advocacy around housing, I mean, I don't think that sounded new to you. But what are your thoughts, or what did you? Here's the dignity part, or
Yeah, it's
whatever you
hard.
would like to add.
It's so hard to know where to start. Because what caught my eye initially, I've been at, again, not really in the mix locally, but I've been staying on top of the national responses that are going all over the country. And when I was working for the county, as I mentioned, for those 6 weeks, I learned a lot about what people were doing all over the country in terms
Could
of.
you remind the audience again, just because some people join on
Oh,
later?
sorry.
What was the connection with the whole process or this story? The RRI?
Yes. Well, when we started, the county realized they needed some help responding, that the pandemic was making the sheltering situation even more challenging, that we couldn't fit everybody in the Delano Center, or even in the rotating congregational shelter that the shelter runs every year during the winter was about to close April 1. But instead, they started running around saying, wait, we need you to stick around. And then the Red Roof Inn came, there was a lot of advocacy around the Red Roof Inn then. It was put forth right back then to put people in the Mary Lou Murray Center. And, we went and looked at the Mary Lou Murray Center all along thinking, really? They sent us to the Vets Ice Arena to look at that. I kid you not, as a place to, warehouse people. I think we all know, in a pandemic, as Susan said, congregate living doesn't make it's not the best option we have, right, for a pandemic.
Yeah, and Carole,
What?
I don't want to name names, but is that decision process the county or is it the health department? Both? Like,
Well, that's a whole nother
who-
conversation. This system that we
Yeah.
have in place to manage
Okay.
homelessness that we spend millions of dollars on, but
Okay,
yeah,
I'm sorry for interrupting.
you have nonprofits involved, you have the Shelter Association, obviously, you have the county, you have public health, you have Office of Community and Economic Development, you have the Washtenaw Housing Alliance, which is essentially supposed to be an advocacy organization. There's a lot of players, and I've been soaking in that world for years. And, sometimes the system works better than others. I think right now we don't have a system that's working well. I mean, I watched it. I think you probably heard about them putting a busload of people, piling people on a bus, sending them out to Chelsea. This was very early on, and then turning around and sending them back, the county administration, just blatant disregard for people's dignity. I'm sorry, I keep coming back down to that, but because what I want to say is really
Don't
that,
apologize.
I'm sorry I keep talking about dignity, damn it. But seriously, and maybe just my being farther enough away, when I started working at the shelter in 1989, one of the first things I did was every week was, oh yeah, we move these thin mattresses around to churches every 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was 1989. That is still happening. And it is just stunning to me that we don't kind of look up for a minute and say, this is not what we can do so much better than this. And again, in a pandemic, you obviously can see that people in congregate settings is not ideal, but you can work really hard and make it work. And that's what's happening, right? The shelter has done that. It could be possible to warehouse people in large spaces, but does that even, why would, is that something we want to do? Is that the best we can do? Is that what we can do here in Washtenaw County? All across the country, people started doing things like buying hotels, putting people into hotels. We had to really, really push. Sorry, I'm getting back to your original Red Roof Inn question, but I mean, we really did some advocacy to get those Red Roof Inn units online because the county didn't want to do it. They wanted to just put people in the Mary Lou Murray Rec Center. But obviously, as Deon has described, imagine just having your own space is huge. And it's what every person needs. And it's what we need to be thinking about in our shelter response. To me, sorry, I'm saying too many things all at once, but obviously the long-term solution to homelessness is housing. There's millions of examples. That's what works all over. We know it. People should be in emergency shelter the shortest amount of time. And, and then move to a permanent house. We should prioritize long-term, and the successful communities around the country have seized upon this moment when a pandemic clearly illustrates that if you didn't think that housing was a basic human right already, now is a really good time to start, because being homeless can be fatal, right? That is what we're talking about. We have, as Susan described, this infectious disease going around. So, a lot of communities all around are like buying hotels, renting hotels, having partnerships with their universities. Don't even start me. The University of Michigan, during my sorry, Susan,
No, don't be sorry.
Nothing, I know you're not representing them here, but just saying, we spent about a month talking to them about trying to use their rooms before the Red Roof Inn, while this was all going on, because it was obvious. EMU, U of M, first they were waiting. Nobody knew how, what the demand was going to be. But as time went on, basically they stalled us for 4 straight weeks, never responded, and the county didn't push them on anything, because the county isn't really advocates for, I don't think, for people in need right now either. So anyway, this is what's happening in other places. There's creative partnerships, there's vision, there's prioritization of public dollars. There's a lot of federal dollars coming into communities right now through, all sorts of ways, which is great, but it's on the community to invest it wisely, to prioritize long-term solutions, and to really, Washtenaw County could end homelessness. They could find a place for everyone. I can't tell you, we're a small community. We have a lot of money. We supposedly have a lot of brain power. Sorry, my neighbor, can you hear that? I had the window open, it's so beautiful, but now they're mowing. So anyway, I'll just stop for a minute and just say that I feel like so disappointed in Washtenaw County right now, and our inability to find the leadership, the creativity to be willing to really do the right thing.
Thank you, Susan.
I want to ask a question of all of you, because I think the pandemic does present us with an opportunity to learn about how dependent we are on each other, and that, you know, what's good for your neighbor is often very good for you too. So on the one hand, the Red Roof Inn and, you know, potentially using a university dormitory if that could happen, or the Wyndham Garden or anything else, because of the pandemic, is bound to be a time limited solution. And what
Absolutely.
I'm hearing from you is, you know, okay, that would help with the infectious disease problem, but it's not going to help with all the other problems we have with homelessness, the lack of dignity, the lack of quality of life, the strain that it puts on people on a day-to-day basis. And believe me, I've seen this in so many patients, I can't tell you. And I've had patients in the Red Roof Inn, I've had patients in the shelter, I've had patients sleeping in tents, obviously. And so I guess my question for you is, how can we potentially seize this moment, and what could we do, practically speaking, what could we do to solve the housing problem using the pandemic as, if you will, a really good reason to start now?
If we get let Deon, and then I'll let you go, Carol. Then I have some thoughts.
Sure. You know, I believe the case managers help a lot. A lot of the advocacy situation programs help. So the individuals, the clients, the homelessness have to be willing to, you know, meet their case manager halfway, you know, with providing the information they need to be able to step by step get them into housing. We don't want the clients to put up any block or any hold on getting into housing, because that happens sometimes. You know, they get into a situation where, you know, either they're at, you know, the Red Roof or the Delano Center, and they're like, oh, I'm here now. You know, I'll stay here as long as I can. You know, as long as they allow me. Really, it's more. That's like you said. You know, that's kind of like temporary, as short as possible. Sorry. Stay as possible into permanent housing. You know, just like push. When we get people in situations like when they're at the Red Roof and they're at the Wyndham, to get those people into housing. If we could have, it'd be nice if we could have a program like that where we could take people to like a hotel that we buy or something, and then really push to get them into housing, like you know, kind of like reverse snowball effect, because we don't want people to procrastinate, hold off on that. Really need people to kind of peel these clients' mind to give them what they need to get them into permanent housing, and not have any block. Because you know, people sleeping in tents. Even I know we discussed it at our barbecue at Willard Park. You know, it's a terrible situation, especially during the pandemic, especially during the winter. You know,
Deon, could you mention, because I don't know, and a lot of the audience might not know, what was the barbecue at Wyndham Park, or specifically the terrible situation? And then Carol, I'll let you go.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm sorry, my volume kind of cut down on me. There we go.
Okay.
So yeah, Camp Outreach had a barbecue at Willard Park, kind of like to push to keep the Red Roof Inn open at
Couple
the
weeks
time.
ago?
I'm sorry?
Couple weeks ago, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think they do it every other week, eh? Something like that, at a
Right.
different location.
Okay.
So, past week we were at the Red Roof Inn. Before that, we were at the barbecue, and before that, Red Roof Inn. So yeah, so there were some people, like at least 4 people, who said they were sleeping in tents and plan to sleep in tents moving forward from November 1st. So I kind of would like to myself, like, why would they prefer to sleep in a tent versus, even having the choice of a warming center or, a night warming center. But I also do know everybody's human, and some people, have personalities, and get into arguments with staff, and so those type of things happen too. But just to provide those people with what they need. I was gonna say, like, part of the supplies we need, like boots and hand warmers and uh, camping heaters and things we're trying to acquire for those people, especially to for survival through this, is kind of like also our focus.
So it seems like, Deon, and I don't want to answer for you, but for Susan's question, as far as a long-term practical solution, a part of it would be some comprehensive support on an individual basis and finding out what will stabilize the individual and within support being housed also first, but also addressing all the other issues around recognizing everyone's different.
Yes, and I think definitely needs to have some type of timeline guideline to, like, 2-3 months, 4 months max, something like that, in a transition into permanent housing. We could really build them get what they need.
Possible time.
I'm sorry?
The
Sorry, my
shortest possible
volume
time.
is doing something totally different here.
That's
Okay.
But I know, Carole, I've been saying before, you don't want people in the shelter, but if they are in the shelter for the shortest amount of time possible, I believe. But I'm going to move on to Carole. And Carole, what would you say? And Susan, what is your question? What is a long-term practical solution that would solve housing in Washington?
Well, what I'm saying is that, right now we have an urgency of meeting the needs of our community members at greater risk from COVID, but also to protect the greater community, okay, from having the cases explode like they're doing. So what could we do that would potentially have a longer term impact on homelessness? But we could sort of take advantage, if you will, of the pandemic as an opportunity to push and do it now.
Okay. And yeah, practical in there before, which sometimes I forget.
Yes, practical.
Carole, I don't want to take your time, but go for it.
Yeah, first, in terms of urgency, I really wish the county had a little bit more of it, but I think all of us here feel the urgency. So I do, we really know how to end homelessness. We really do. And I take your point very much, though, Susan, in terms of how we capitalize, if you will, or how we don't not take advantage of this opportunity we have, because that is what is happening all around the country. And there's very clear roadmaps. First of all, supportive housing, let me just say, which we have to fight for our lives to get funded every year at Avalon. And I've not been there 3 years. And honestly, the fundraising is what pretty much drove me out of the job. But and the fact that they're never going to let us be successful, but that's neither here nor there. With 95% success rate, right? So when Deon's talking about, the value of case management, intensive supports, helping people who haven't been stable in a long time restabilize their lives based on whatever is going on, we know how to do that. The Fuse program that you mentioned earlier, I love, that was fabulous. And that actually brought us into contact with folks all around the country doing it. So that was a great perspective for us to even more understand, like, what is possible, right? And the value and what happens when you prioritize high risk, fragile people with housing, and how that saves, big debate, how much money is it saving the community? And that's always, the line we want, but then there's the moral argument, like, that people are, whatever. But so, we know permanent housing. We know that supportive housing is really essential for folks who have really high needs around behavioral health generally, but also we have other programs like Alex mentioned, rapid rehousing program, which is something for folks who can be quickly, who just need the financial support for a short time. And that's something right now that they are working on, trying to target these federal funds that are coming in from CARES program and other ways, state, federal, local dollars. If you target it for long-term solutions, so then yes, you need short-term emergency shelter, but there's so much money right now. And that's what happened. People, like Dan said, people are buying hotels. And, you know, we used to, when I left, we were like, buy the days in, because that's sitting there. The hotels are struggling, you know, they don't have any, you know, they're in need, so they're willing to work, you know, out something. But it just, you know, it just requires the littlest bit of creativity and vision. Ellen and I, we did a big survey of what's going on all over the country. We sent data, we sent articles. Dennis Culhane, the national researcher. Sorry?
Ellen and you, the audience might not know.
I'm so sorry. Ellen Rabinowitz and I, who she was formerly the public health director, they approached her to help, and then she brought me on because homelessness, you know, she wanted to have that in addition to her public health perspective. And so we started doing research and looking at articles and actions that were happening all over. We kept on sending these things, writing up a whole report about it. And honestly, in the end, nobody cared. They didn't read it. They didn't respond to us. We were honestly told we were too much advocacy. So they just kind of.
Where's the report?
I could send it to you. We sent it to, you know, Greg Dill and Diane and everybody in the county, all through, you know, there, and nobody responded. And so, you know, yes, maybe we don't have the money. We don't exactly know. Well, yeah, we knew there was a lot of federal dollars coming. At that point, it wasn't all in place yet, but, you know, it was, if you're forward thinking, you know, you do manage predictable risk, you know, you take action on behalf of people. We all know how to do that, you know, and so it was just a very big disappointment that so in terms of, I do think your point is extremely well taken. This is an opportunity moment. And Ellen and I were in meetings, we were like, please don't lose, let's not lose this moment, right? This is the moment. But what we found was the county unable to respond, lacking leadership, lacking vision, lacking creativity all the way around. And I mean broadly, I mean just all the players right now. But the other thing in terms of what we can do going forward, to speak to something positive, well, let's just say that the only bright spot, or one of the only ones that we have in this whole election madness, we did pass the affordable housing millage in Ann Arbor. So that's a great thing. So I heard today it got 75%. I didn't even realize that. So that's amazing. But also, I think that we need to talk to our county commissioners, because I think these county decisions and decisions that nonprofit and county folks and bureaucrats and everybody's making about what we're going to do, ultimately, the average person's angle towards that is communicating with their county commissioner and demanding that we not warehouse people. When the Shelter Association is putting out a request for 7,500 square feet of space, which I read, and this is what got me back all into this, on October 10th, that was in MLive. They put it out. We're looking for 7,500 square feet of space. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Talk about just warehousing people. And I just don't think putting people in a gym, in a church hall, in an ice rink, you know, it's not what we can do. We can do so much more here in Washtenaw County. And so that's what's really been motivating me to, again, exactly what you're saying, Susan, seize this opportunity. And I think groups like Camp Outreach and others are critical in that. And so I hope that the county continues to listen and that we can all work together. I think there's action going on the grassroots level amongst folks who are currently homeless and formerly homeless, and advocating and organizing and supporting camps. There's also, level of the nonprofit level. There's lots of levels of advocacy and work towards, and we need a full court press right now, in my opinion, to convince the county to do the right thing.
I definitely agree. If Susan, did you have some follow-up, or I was going to answer your question too?
No, I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. Well, it's along the lines of Carole. Like, she started off, the county could use a sense of urgency, and then to the commissioners, I think the public has to apply that pressure, and in order to do that, they need to know the story, and that's why I had all of you on. From just doing advocacy work, and Susan, you as a doctor treating people, you know, and Deon, because you're in with that population that we're talking about frequently, and your career, Carole, has been in it. when you're dealing with the people face to face and you're feeling that and experiencing these human stories, you have a real perspective on it. You can't imagine telling a bunch of these people to go live in an ice rink, or or when you said no to people, like you win the cycle of trying to find a place to live for someone, and at the end, well, don't have anything for you. You're in that situation. That happens. So when you experience that reality, or tell that story, or tell the public, or allow the public to hear that, I think that goes a long way towards putting the pressure where it needs to be, the Board of Commissioners, and maybe that could give them the political courage that they haven't since shown. It's going to take money. You're going to have to finance. One of the one of the worries that I have, something I had mentioned to Carole earlier, with our national election and the situation that it's in, some people in the left are saying that that's an example of us pushing politics too far to the left with defund the police and so-called socialist policies and things. And it's so frustrating because we get so caught up in national stories and don't look at the real story here, what's happening in Washtenaw County. Our sheriff's department has a $58 million budget. There's money in that to house people so you don't warehouse them. There's money here. So political courage, and I think that would come with the pressure from the public if instead of rhetoric from the advocacy group a lot, doing more studying and being strategic, and like how Carole laid out the Board of Commissioners and specific policy, and putting it in front of them and highlight when people say no, and who are the bad actors. So yeah, I think political courage, and you're gonna have to spend money.
I want to echo what you said in terms of, I think the most valuable voices are like Deon's and the people with lived experience, because that's exactly the problem. I think a lot of the county folks making these decisions literally just don't even know. They never hear any firsthand. They don't, I mean, I think you have to just be so blinders on to say, yeah, go in here at 9 p.m. and leave by 5 a.m. and that is our sheltering option for you. I have never heard anything just so inhumane on its face. How would we accept that? And I personally, I don't know, I'm far enough away from it now, or something, that I've just come back around to be motivated to just not, just that does not need to happen here. And so, but anyway, I guess my point is really the leadership of any of this should be from the people who are experiencing it, and they're, so it's very important to keep them at the table. We haven't done that very well in this community. And I think we all have to, that's critical towards people understanding how this translates to people's lives, because it's just too easy to say, oh yeah, we don't have the money, so we're just going to put them in a mat on the floor of a gym.
I'm going to we have about, I'll say like 10 or 15 more minutes. Susan, I'm going to let you go, but I'd love to hear, if you have some answers to your question or thoughts too, but go for it.
Well, what I'm hearing, and I don't know nearly as much about homelessness and how to solve that problem as the rest of you do, though I will be calling my county commissioner multiple times. What I'm hearing is that, first of all, and I think your point, Carole, about we need to actually engage the people who are homeless or have housing insecurity, instability, and ask them to help us help them, basically, in some ways, because not everybody's the same. Some people may need just emergency shelter because of some kind of, family or building or whatever problem. Some people may need much more supportive housing than others. Okay. I think the idea of, the emergency shelter, the transitional housing, like we've used with the Red Roof Inn and the Wyndham now, but then, how do we transition people into something more permanent? If we bought a hotel, for instance, Ellen, I mean, not Carole, would it, would that work? And I think we have to ask people who are homeless, would that work? Could we have something like that? But I think, I'm hearing from you that, but I do think that we need to, how do I want to say this? The pandemic gives us, again, an opportunity to sell this as not just helping other people who need our help, but also
Public
doing,
safety.
public safety
Protecting ourselves.
and public health. And yes, I realize that we shouldn't have to care. I mean, we shouldn't need that in order to care about housing people. I totally agree. But we may be able to get more people behind it.
You
if
mean
will.
Barton Hills might have a little bit more pressure than West Willow or the south side of Ypsi? Might
Well,
move a few more.
I mean, I'm a doctor, okay? I can call my county commissioner and say, I'm a doctor. We're having and I have a public health degree, and we're having rising COVID cases. And you know what they're doing to the homeless people? And that's going to make it worse. Okay, so just saying.
I mean, it does seem on its face an obvious, congregate settings are not ideal. They aren't,
Right.
but and people know that. But the problem is they have figured out, they've made it safe thus far at Delanis. You can go to extraordinary measures, and now we have more testing and everything else. But that's why I really want to take this, I don't know. I just don't think it's an acceptable, we're supposed to be so smart here in Washtenaw County, and we have so
We're literally progressive.
I mean, and all we can come up is
Yeah.
warehousing people. I mean,
No.
like I said, these rapid rehousing programs, we're very well versed. We know this county, we got it down. Our continuum of care, for whatever you want to say about Washington, like we often are set up as examples around the country. Believe that or not, because we have this system, and we essentially have a system where the shelter, that works. You have the shelter, we have different, on the continuum, different elements in place, and we have a process, and we have a single point of entry, and all of these things that we are doing well in the country. But so we know how to distinguish who needs short-term, who needs long-term.
Right.
The rapid rehousing is that exact kind of transition.
Right.
Get somebody who doesn't need long-term. So all those products are there. The knowledge is there. Housing first is a
Right.
the evidence is there.
Yep.
There's just really no question about all these things other than the political will to dedicate
Put
the money. Yes.
in
Yeah.
to it. Yes.
Deon, I look like there's a couple times you wanted to jump in, or did you
Please,
have something
please
you wanted to
Deon,
add now?
stop me from myself.
Yeah. So you mentioned, the process of obtaining housing. I just wanted to revisit that skeleton and see what we might be able to do to make it move more quickly and efficiently. People are using it, or people don't have it. Right? Like Section 8, the waiting list it opened towards the end. I want to say either the last month, second to last month, that the Red Roof was closing. A good number of people that were at the Red Roof got their Section 8 and got into the house. So that was good. Good luck, lucky time right there. But just looking at the process of how to get in the house and for the homelessness, I want to just kind of look at that backbone and see if there's something we might be missing that could kind of like just make it move
difficulty, just
faster.
the difficulty in the length of time. The difficulty
Yes.
in the length of time, like as far as
Yeah.
the list being closed and just nothing available. And
Yeah, I mean, what if the list could be open, more rather than less? I don't know if it's once a year or twice a year. I'm not really.
No, I don't think it's even that. I don't remember the last time they opened it. I noticed when they did this year. But yeah, it's not even.
I know it was open from, I want to say September 1st to September 30th, 31st, which was good timing for people in that that could
Sorry,
use that.
the list you're talking about is the Section 8 waiting list?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But I mean, Deon, it's a huge frustration, and it's very, you hit obstacles right away because we don't have, and these things take long. Avalon, one good, aside from the millage, Avalon does have, and Avalon and the public, Ann Arbor Public Housing, the Housing Commission have been coordinating together. They did on the millage, and like places like Miller Manor and other, partnerships, and so there are hundreds of units in development in the pipeline. These things take so long. Avalon has a 70 unit development, 2 phases on South Maple, Hickory Way, it's called. So those are all 1 bedrooms, which are going to be amazing. But that's okay. We started that well before I left Avalon. Okay, so we're going.
Okay.
These projects take 5 years minimal, and that's only there's the project in Dexter they've been fighting for years. That's 24, and the community has organized in resistance there. We don't even start me on that. This woman who fought Avalon on that just got elected to Dexter City Council with the most votes of anyone. She led the fight against Avalon coming into a project in Dexter. So, which is just to say that you're right. It's a ridiculously long time. The funding mechanism for, and this is for unit, versus subsidies, like you said, Section 8 subsidies, or Avalon manages other subsidies. They got pots of HUD money, other, money that they can translate into subs. That's what rapid rehousing is. It's basically housing subsidies with supports that are short term that you sort of titrate out of. If for folks who can use that, some people always need subsidy. That's a whole nother, we just need more of all of it. And these are federal priorities, but they are also, we can, like Alex said, we can really impact locally on some of that if we put our minds to it.
I did
Well,
want to mention one other thing.
Go ahead.
So when they reopened the warming or cooling center for COVID at the Delano Center, there were a lot of folks from out of town, out of our county, out of our community that came to the Delano Center. Are they included, or are we more focusing on our community? Because there was a number of people from out of town.
That tends to be a constant question because, people have said for years, oh, we have all these resources in Ann Arbor, and the more we have, then people will come. And, I think there's probably elements of some truth to that. Yeah, Detroit has been known to put people in a cab and send them to Ann Arbor and the shelter address or whatever. But honestly, I don't think that's as big as people think it is. In my experience at Avalon and at the shelter, vast majority of people from Washtenaw County, born and raised here. Some may have left because it was too expensive and come back, But I do think that it's a scarcity mentality that I don't think we have to have. I do think that that we can do. Yeah, I've heard, I know that that's of a concern, but what we tried to suggest at that time when we were starting, okay, what's our total universe? How many people are in Delano's, in the congregational shelters, in everywhere, and also projecting an increase. They were releasing people from jails at that time, which was great, but was it going to be impacting on the homelessness system? They were, we're still projecting all these evictions. I mean, we have no idea, once we stop talking about the election and get back to, our COVID crisis, which is meanwhile, whatever. I'm just saying there's an anticipation. So we were looking at every number. We were looking at the total number of people. We were projecting numbers. Again, there were these national data estimates on how to project numbers in the future. And the idea is to find a permanent housing spot for every single one of those people, whether they came from here or not. The majority did. But that was our moment. Like, we can get every person in need of housing right now at a hotel. And then the idea was, and this is what people have said, and sorry, I'll stop in a minute, but like the researchers, they're like, if I were an advocate, I'd say, hell no, we're not leaving these hotels until you give us a permanent housing solution, right? I mean, honestly, if we had organized and really, I mean, that's, this is the thing. Everybody needs it. So now's the point. Get everybody in temporary, either in a hotel, a dorm room, or whatever, and then furiously work to craft these permanent solutions, which are doable. And that's what they're doing in other places. And that's what we're not doing here. So.
And I'm going to be talking with Deon and Camp Outreach about that after this show. To close though, Deon, I want to give you an opportunity to give a contact info for Camp Outreach and tell what kind of things that you guys are doing that you guys can use help with and people can donate to.
Okay, yeah. So friend us on your Facebook, Washtenaw Camp Outreach. We need we need supplies, of course. Some of the things we need are like 0-degree sleeping bags, heavy duty tarps, long johns, thermals, boots, hand warmers, propane for stoves, propane heaters, camping heaters. Uh, that's kind of like what we compiled for our meeting. That's what we have on our list. Also, great donations for food and things like that as well, for not just meetings, but for these people.
How would people get those things to you on Facebook? Reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely hit our Facebook feed. I am not like one of the head coordinators, but the names you will look for is Lauren, Casey. These people, kind of like formed the group, so
Okay.
they reach out.
Can I ask you a quick question, Alex? Sorry that I meant to ask of Deon.
Yes.
Do you have cooperation with the sheriff's department or in local PDs about not clearing out camps, not bothering people in camps? Because I know that was something that we talked about early on. Because honestly, I'd stay outside before I stayed at the Mary Lou Murray Recreation Center. Let me just say that.
No, we
right?
don't.
So,
I'll bring it up at our meeting,
okay.
and we could put pressure on that, as well as continuing to keep pressure on the commissioners.
I mean, yeah, they definitely had that conversation where they were supposedly during COVID agreeing not to disrupt or vacate camps, but I was just wondering if that was still the case. So yeah.
Not that I know of. I'm definitely gonna mention it and make sure that happens. That we can keep in communication with them to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, so for those, they can go to your Facebook, Washtenaw Camp Outreach, go to the Facebook page, and they can send messages from then. And you have any closing, anything else you want to say, Deon, before I give Carol and Susan and we close out?
I just want to say thank you, Alex, as well too, for hosting this meeting. The more meetings, the more Zoom, the better awareness, communication. This action is definitely what we need, and it's definitely helping so far. And then continuing that and planning more projects for the future for this situation.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and thank you for coming on. Carol?
Sorry if I talk too much or too fast, but I just appreciate you all's work and hope to be helpful in whatever way I can, because I'm not really working myself right now. So let me know if there's any other roles you all have. And also, I just want to say that housing is a basic human right. And I think we all believe that. And I think we need a new countywide movement with that as our, well, I know there's plenty of things happening in the county, but I just hope we can come together as a county behind that principle.
Thank you, me too. Susan? Yeah, mute.
Sorry about that. I just want to say that this has been a really great conversation, and I want to thank you, Alex, for having us. The so-called social determinants of health, one of the most important is housing, where you live, both the location and what your living quarters are like. And that has become even more abundantly clear during our current pandemic. And it is my hope that we can learn from this and take care of everybody's health, and take care of everybody actually in our community. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you, and thank you all. Remember Washtenaw Camp Outreach, everybody, and go to the Facebook page. A shout out to Mutual Aid Network of Ypsilanti is going to be coordinating tomorrow at 1225 South Congress Street, flu shots, free flu shots for people from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's thanks to our health department and the Mutual Aid Network of Ypsilanti Mini. You can go to their Facebook, but it's at Beautiful Gate International Church, 11 to 2 tomorrow, 1225 South Congress Street. But again, thank you, everybody. Housing's a basic human right. We got to do something about it. Tell your commissioner. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks for having us.
See you guys.
Thanks for having us.